Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Review Show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Yes, we have had the first round of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman and we have 5 games to go through, with starting off with the Highlanders against the Reds on Friday night, going all the way through to the Western Force versus the Chiefs on Saturday evening. And joining me to review all of those shows, I have got Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Paul. Good evening, and good evening to your viewers. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, this.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you folks who think, hey, look at this, these guys are totally unprepared, it's all over the place. Well, that might be because we've not even had any pre-show chat at all. So yes, there might be an element to that. But don't forget, folks, we are an independent show channel that brings you our unique insight into all of the sports across here in New Zealand, including rugby, football, league, and all of those things. I've lost Stephen Harris already. If you'd like to support the channel to help us improve Stephen's internet connection so that he doesn't drop out, then do check out patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio to help bring help us improve the tech so that we can bring you all of this wonderful coverage straight to you. So, Stephen, where were you watching the games this weekend? Were you at home? Did you get down the rugby club? Where were you situated for the games this weekend?
Oh, listen, I watched all the games at home, certainly like everybody else, with a bit of interest. And I must admit, I was hoping for some competitive games. I think probably the fact that all the New Zealand teams took out the victories is probably no surprise, but there was a couple of surprise, shall we say, results in there, probably a lot closer than a lot of people had thought.
Yes, folks, and sorry my predictions didn't get published on time. They normally get published on nzsportradio.com. But yeah, I was 5 from 5 in prediction this weekend. Just like you, I got home after the games, or after doing watching a bit of club rugby on Saturday to watch the games at home as well in front of my 4 screens, so I can bring you all the tweeting at the same time, folks. Yes, I do believe that you were officiating as well on Saturday.
Yes, I did. Yes, a very good friend of mine, former All Black Dean Kelly, is coaching Birkenhead College in the North Harbour second division of secondary schools, and he's coaching Birkenhead College, who have not had a team in the first 15 for about the last 3 seasons. So yeah, exciting for the college. And listen, they had a first up loss last weekend, close loss, and they had another close loss yesterday, but I actually just went along to watch the game and ended up running the touch judge flag. So there weren't too many complaints, probably only about 12. So
there you go. You see, we don't worry. We all abuse Stephen, just like we abuse normal referees as well, for his appalling AR work. Doesn't he need to go to Specsavers? Absolutely, more often than he has already. He's already got glasses. But anyway, good evening, folks, to those of you who have joined us in the live chat from Nocturnal Rights, Simon, Jordan, Neymar, etc. Great to have you along here to join us. So, as I say, we kicked off with the Highlanders versus the Reds. The Reds obviously coming off the back of beating the Brumbies with a very late, last play of the game in the Super Rugby AU final the previous weekend, having a short turnaround and then having to travel over to Dunedin for that one. And we saw the impact of that as I think there was a lot of new names on the selections. And we had a rookie error to kick the game off, didn't we, Stephen, with the lock getting in the way of his scrum half. The scrum half not still going through this part anyway, that led to an early try by the Highlanders. Look, the Reds did come back to even things up 5-5, but that really was a sign that perhaps this Reds team was not the same Reds team that we saw in the final, was it?
Yeah, no, not at all. Listen, just some new combinations, and they're also a big call to pop in a very young young halfback and Kalen Thomas into that number 9 jersey. He's out of Ipswich College, and that's only probably a year or two out of Ipswich College. So, a young kid that showed that he is a very good footballer, but I think probably maybe a few nerves in those initial stages, and yes, just really finding that combination. And these New Zealand teams, they swoop on any mistakes that you make, especially in your red zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was some interesting tactics for the Highlanders. I think what we saw here was a side that had 2 weeks to prepare against their opposition, against a side that really were trying to get over their hangovers from the previous weekend. Some real good kicking by the Highlanders in behind, finding space, pinning the Reds back the whole time. When you look at the Reds had 18 line-outs in this game, so a lot of kicking by the a lot of kicking for touch by the Highlanders. We think the Highlanders only did 20 kicks from hand in the end, but those kicks really did control that territory, particularly in that first half. And at 21-7 at half time, it really was. It really was going to be a big ask for the Reds to come back from that, and that included, remember, Renton diving over the line after the hooter as well. So it could have been a lot worse, or it could have been a bit worse than it was already. Is this really a sign of how of the gap between the two across the Tasman, or is this more a factor of how the Reds how much preparation time the Reds had for this game?
Yeah, I think the prep that they've had, they had to put in one heck of a big effort for a final last weekend, and you never know how these teams are going to recover. We'll get to that Crusaders Brumbies game. I thought that was probably, in terms of quality, one of the better games. But just getting back to this particular game, I think it just took this Reds team a bit of a while to find their feet. They weren't totally out of the hunt. Just after halftime, Vunivalu scored Paul and back at 21-12, and you thought to yourself, oh, maybe the Highlanders might just get the speed wobble. But I think what was the Reds were struggling with was just really the ball movement of the Highlanders, the ball movement and the speed. And I just think the whole pace that the Highlanders play at, especially under the roof down there, they never seem to deviate from their particular style. And I thought they got a lot of go forward from some of their places. Some of their players are no more than Jimeno, the number 8, who just is really as impressed as as an overseas player. And I was really impressed also with Aiden Johnson in the front row. Gave them a lot of work rate. Of course, Hugh Renton and the other loose forward Harmon made a lot of tackles as well. And it really gave Aaron Smith and Mitch Hunt the opportunity to run the show.
It did. Look, the Reds also, their exit strategy just did not work on the night, using crossfield kicks on the edge of their own 22. Yes, was questionable. I think also the other problem was they just kept doing the same thing. Losing James O'Connor to HIA at halftime didn't help matters at all. Their tackling, which was 80%. It didn't help either, allowing 11 clean breaks by the Highlanders. Again, another sign of a team that aren't used to playing with each other and getting disconnected in that defence. So I think this is more a sign of the Reds' preparation for this. Look, they've reached their goal that they've had for probably about 4 years under Brad Thornton last weekend, and emotionally getting up for this game would be very difficult after that. As well as getting over the celebrations as well. So I think we'll see better from the Reds in the remainder of this tournament. But with it being only 5 games long, a poor start like this means it's going to be very difficult for them to make the final already with this loss. And also not picking up a bonus point.
Yeah, Paul, I was about to say one player who really impressed us in 2020, but just seems to be a little bit off the place this year is Dalgunu. He was slipperier than an eel in 2020, but just completely off the pace in terms of his game. I thought one of the better performers for the Reds was Uru, the number 8, Fijian number 8, who normally plays at lock. But I thought he gave them a lot of go forward. Put in a really, really good effort and a Reds team that was pretty well beaten. Also, I thought Scott Young was very good for the visitors as well. In terms of the Highlanders, I don't think they'd be completely happy with maybe a couple of their outside backs. Not so much Jonah Nareki. I thought they didn't get enough ball to Jonah Nareki, because to me he looked the most dangerous player on the paddock. I was pleasantly surprised with Gilbert at fullback. Did most things well, but poor old Seal Tompkinson on the wing. Well, he had probably a night to forget. And I've just got to, being a Northlander as well, I just got to mention Scott Gregory. Just getting better and better in that second five position. Just probably at times, Paul, he just misreads in defence, gets himself in the wrong area. There was a little bit of controversy with what probably would have been the try of the match from a beautiful little offload, and once again Gregory actually got caught out. He went in, two players went in on one player, short little offload. Unfortunately, it was forward at the end of the day, but boy, if they'd left that as a try, you wouldn't have held that against the Reds. That was a beauty.
Yeah, look, it's I think it's a bit harsh on Tompkinson. Look, he is definitely a centre. He's not a winger, and getting played out of position is always going to be tough, to be honest. The other good thing about this Reds team is that they played all the way to the end. Vunivalu got a couple of tries in the end for his crossfield kicks. He's still got a lot to learn in this code, obviously with league, having come across from league, but the skills he does bring across have worked really well on that one. Jordan Clark's makes a point here that Reds should have played Saturday after winning the AU tournament. Would have given them more time to recuperate. Absolutely, and I think also the Brumbies and the Reds shouldn't have been asked to travel either. The Crusaders didn't, and I think those three teams shouldn't have been asked to. Look, with the Chiefs, it's a bit different. I don't think people expected the Chiefs to make the final, so you can understand why they get drawn away. But the organisers haven't helped themselves with the draw. They put the two best teams with two very, very difficult situations to try and pick up a win. From the Australian side point of view, and it's led to this 5-0 scoreline, which, as Aaron puts it, back to normal viewing 5-0 to New Zealand teams. Well, I don't think we'll see it as 5-0 every weekend. I think that the organisers shot themselves in the foot by not giving the Reds or the Brumbies a good crack at an opening win, just for interest in the tournament's sake, really, more than anything else.
Gee, Paul, for the sake of a couple of kicks, and we'll get to those games a little bit later, it could have been 3, a draw and a loss. So that's real fine margins at the end of the day.
It is. Let's move on then to the second game. And boy, this wanted a different style of game to about anything you've seen in the past year. This is it. Waratahs versus the Hurricanes. Sorry, there was a question here saying, have I got an Aussie rep on the review show? No, I haven't done. I haven't this week. I will make more of an effort to reach around and see if we can find someone for next week. My first line is here, stark contrast, seeing the Tars exit well. I thought that was good for them. Look, with Ruben Love going off injured very early, I was thinking, this could even things up. But this one just turned into I don't know. Do you call it festival rugby? Do you call it an exhibition game? 84-64, 112 points on the night combined. The fifth highest scoring Super Rugby game of all time. 17 tries. How do you review this game? I mean, look, if I show you my notes, I have notes on the actual play at the top, and in the second half, it's just a list of scores because it just got absolutely crazy in this one. Aaron says, good game of touch. There, which, yes, there's definitely an element of that one. As John said, the game with a lot of tries and some atrocious tackling. Yeah, exactly. That's what this. I'm not sure there was tackling at times in this one. 79% tackling from the Waratahs, from to 88% tackling from the Hurricanes. Look, a lot of game in hand, a lot of ball in play in this one, let's be honest. 475 metres run by the Waratahs, 718 metres run with ball in hand by the Hurricanes. Some teams will take 3 or 4 games to run that far with the ball in hand. So, look, there was lots of play on show, but 12 clean breaks by the Waratahs, 24 clean breaks by the Hurricanes. This is, I'm not really sure what you can actually, how to really describe this game, to be honest with you, Stephen.
Yeah, that scoreline, that's really early days of Super Rugby. Anybody who watched Super Rugby for the first 5 seasons, these are the sort of basketball scores you were getting, and it's a real throwback to those days. Listen, credit to both teams. They obviously went out there to entertain, but boy, you know, I think probably the coaching staff of Chris Gibbs and Jason Holland, they'll be, you know, at the end of the day, they'd probably be a little bit disappointed to leak 48 teams to a team like the Waratahs. If you think back to the first part of Super Rugby, the Waratahs couldn't buy a trick when it came to scoring tries, Paul, and all of a sudden, if you told me at the beginning of the game they'd scored 48, I would have thought, gee, we're in for a heck of an upset. But at the end of the day, they're still well and truly beaten. What is that in terms of point spreads? 16 points at the end of the day. But I just kind of, there might have been times, especially with about 10 minutes to go, when it got back to 54-43. Well, man, that's only a two score game, Paul. You never know what could happen. But you know, I think the Hurricanes always had them at arm's length. Just in terms of players who impressed me, listen, great to see Julian Savea running with a little bit of power, how we've seen in the past. Yeah, sure, you could arguably say he just had to finish those tries, but on saying that, he looks reasonably fit and he's running with a bit of pace and power. And I must admit, I was very impressed with Alvin Ledger as well, coming on early in the piece and running the show. And we all know how this Hurricanes team is going to play. If they had it their way, they'd like to play with that all the time. But you know, other New Zealand teams are not quite stupid enough to enter into that style of play, try and shut them down in the forwards.
Yeah, I was looking through the kind of scores that the Waratahs have had, and I go back to the Super Rugby pre-season game against the Reds, 45-33, and I'm thinking, yeah, pre-season game, that's exactly what this one is. But in a pre-season game, you have squads of like 45 kind of thing, where you have entire different teams, first half, second half. Gavin Gill, yeah, the game was absolutely insane. Best try was by the Tars at the end. Yeah, that was some wonderful play by the Tars. And yet, as you say, Steve, two teams here who went, who were, well, one of the things we've been saying about the Hurricanes all season is that if you're going to have best try of the tournament for Super Rugby Aotearoa, it was probably going to be top 3 tries from the Hurricanes. I mean, they've been playing some real nice rugby. It's just a matter of, as we say, as you said, other teams would not get themselves into a shootout with the Hurricanes. Now, looking at the Tars play, it's actually probably the best thing for them to do was to get into a shootout, because hey, they when they throw it around, they had some fun too. But yeah, crazy game. Wonderful handling though. We only had our first scrum was was just before halftime or just after halftime, which was fantastic. And the Waratahs, so the Hurricanes only had 1 put in. The Waratahs ended up having 6, which showed the Hurricanes handling was perhaps a bit worse than the Tars. But then again, they were trying all sorts of things. I think they had a license to as well. As John said, yeah, if Julian can't shine against the Tars, he doesn't deserve a spot in the squad. Maybe there's an element of that.
Paul, I was about to say, in terms of their back three, Savea, Rayasi, and Geordie Barrett, is there a bigger back three running around in Super Rugby? I probably don't think so. They really are a handful. Even Rayasi, once again, man, just a handful, because you can tackle him, but he's so strong. You can stand and offload. There was even one of the tries that they scored near the end where he basically just nonchalantly threw an offload around the corner of his back, you know. And he's a player that's definitely got some skill. Just a player I want to mention from the Waratahs, Charlie Gamble, the number 7. Now, Charlie's a former Canterbury under-19 skipper who basically, when they won the under-19 title in Taupo back in about 2015, 2016, he was one of the standout players of the tournament. But in recent times, just went away from rugby. And listen, it's great to see him back in rugby again. This kid's not a big number 7, but a really, really good fetcher and pilferer of the ball. So I just wonder if he may be changing his alliances to as opposed to chasing a black jersey, a gold jersey, Paul.
Well, hey, if that's where the opportunities are going to come, then why wouldn't you? Absolutely, and wish him all the best in that one. 10 tackles, only 1 missed. Which, let's be honest, in this game, if you only missed 1 tackle, you did pretty well compared to compared to a lot of other players. I think Walker literally 4 missed tackles there. Julian Surveyor made 4 tackles and missed 4 tackles. A bit 50-50 there. But look, in this kind of game, you're going to see stats like that. I mean, Maddox also 6 tackles made, 4 missed as well. Fun game, but one I think that they'll want to move straight on from for the Hurricanes. For the Waratahs, look, they're going to take the positives out of this after having not won a game in all of Super Rugby AU. Look, they've scored 48 points. That's fantastic. Now, if they can do that again and actually do and put some defensive steel in, they could actually win a game, which would be fantastic for them. As we said, very young side there. Moving on then, and then to the Crusaders versus the Brumbies on Saturday. Now, the Brumbies haven't beaten the Crusaders in Christchurch since 2000. So it's been over 20 years since they've won a game there. Clearly, they were coming into this one. I think a lot of us have said the way that this tournament basically lines up is it's Crusaders, the rest of the New Zealand sides plus the Reds and the Brumbies, the Force, and then everybody else. The first half of this one was an absolute horror to watch. It was so messy. We had an early try by Blackadder. We then lost the next quarter of the game to basically scrums being a mess. We'd have a scrum. We'd have maybe 1 or 2 phases before we'd end up with another scrum. And each scrum took about 4 or 5 minutes as they were reset, and an absolute farce in this one. I actually tweeted out saying, "Can we please yellow card the whole of both front rows so we can get some people on that actually scrum?" Because it was a nightmare. The Brumbies ended up with 12 scrums in this game, which shows that the handling was not good. The Crusaders with 6. It wasn't a particularly wet or nasty night either, Stephen. So I don't know what happened in the first half, but the Crusaders did their Crusaders thing, played pretty horrible rugby, but as did the Brumbies, but came out 19-7 ahead at half time.
Oh, listen, your summary is pretty much spot on. But I want to go back to that Ethan Blackadder try because at the time we were on the rugby chat, and I just see a nocturnal, or that may not have been nocturnal, just one of the posters, just put a post up about the officials on the night. I actually thought Paul Williams, who's New Zealand's #1 whistleblower, I just thought he was poor on the night. I look at that Ethan Blackadder try, and you can't tell me that wasn't a forward pass. They showed it from the elevated position that was thrown from outside the 22, and the pass was received inside the 22, and it wasn't as if the hands were going backwards. To me, it was forward every day of the week, and up until then, you could just see that the Brumbies were up for this game, and credit to them. We didn't see a lot. We didn't see any scoring until about another 20 odd minutes when Scott Seo went over, and that was after a real good build up from the Brumbies. So that was great to see. And then this one, you thought, they score the try. The Crusaders, or should I say Richie Mo'unga, they just sting you after a minute. You can't afford to switch off against these guys. That was an absolutely brilliant individual try, and anybody playing against them, you've got to mark up on them. And of course, they give away a gimme just before halftime as well when David Havili, and once again, he looked offside, but after showing it again, it was just, that's a risky pass to throw from a halfback, especially when you're obscured by some of your players when you're reaching down and you're obscured by some of the players that are in your pack and you're throwing that wide pass. Obviously, David Havili timed it absolutely brilliant. And listen, at the end of the day, he was onside despite looking offside, Paul.
Yeah, and he'd been called offside a few times earlier on, but finally got it right, and over he went. And he needed to in the end. But the second half turned into much better rugby from both teams. It was interesting to see a very different tactic by the Crusaders in the second half. They went through 15 phases, playing out their own 22 after they received the kickoff in the second half. Clearly, the second half they decided we are going to be, or they've been told at half time, you are to play possession rugby. Do not kick this ball away. And they did a lot of that. Whereas the Brumbies in that second half were like, right, if you want to, if we're not playing out of in our half, I would kick it to the other end. So it was a real real contrast in styles between these two sides in the second half. And in the end, you've actually got to say that the Brumbies style of territory play won the day, because, hey, what was a 12-point gap at half time became a 2-point gap at the end, which they could have drawn if that kick had gone over. So, our first half of sort of real proper competitive rugby, the Brumbies come out on top in that one. And but it was interesting to see. Look, the Brumbies went posts from the corner. They've clearly perhaps had realised that they didn't trust perhaps their set piece like we've seen them do in the past. They would always go to the corner and get that driving maul going, but it didn't really get going in this game. That's obviously a hat tip to the Crusaders' maul defence, and line-out defence, which really caused the Brumbies to switch tactics. You talk about that obvious forward pass in the first Crusaders try, in their line-out maul try. Again, was the Wallabies? Sorry, was the Brumbies player really thrown across the line? Didn't look to be much in it really, and the Crusaders get the penalty, which gives them the platform for that line-out maul. So yeah, the Brumbies probably could feel hard done by in this game. Did very well to get there. Loved Tom Banks's gas and his play in this game. Really was elusive, and I think the Wallabies have found their 15.
Oh, no question. Got to totally agree with you. And that's the thing. If the Brumbies needed to be competitive in this game, some of their players needed to stand up, and there were a few that really impressed me. Valentini, the number 8, boy, he's a handful with ball in hand. Always gave them a lot of go forward, and I thought he was very, very good as well. I also like the look of Simone at second 5, always capable. Good, looks like a big, solid player, capable of beating his first player. And of course, we all know a bit about Solomon Kata, who's a former Warrior. Boy, he's only got one gear, and that's forward straight. It's get out of my way. So he was doing his best Jonah impression on last night, but I thought he was very good as well. Ran with a whole lot of power and purpose. Yeah, once the Brumbies got their game together, Paul, they showed they are a very, very good side. Boy, I pity any of the New Zealand teams that plays them in Canberra, Paul. They'll be very, very tough to beat at home.
Yep, no, I think they will be. They're going to be the toughest side for. Obviously, they've got the hardest game of the for them out of the way. A trip to Christchurch, and they've come away with a losing bonus point. So look, they are the best placed of all the Australian sides to make a run for that finals, and we'll see how they go in that. Lots of love for Ethan Blackadder in the live chat from Dominic Cooper in particular. He is playing really, really well. 7 carries, 61 metres, including that try. We'll have to wait and see if he is going to be the answer for the All Blacks at 6. He's got some tough competition there with Frizzell and I've gone blank. Kiriwani, for example, showing, and Cullen Grace, all showing good, all challenging for that jersey. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Look at the end there. Yes, should there have been a penalty try? Possibly. Obviously, Inari went to the bin for a yellow card in 78 minutes, and Severis has continued the Crusaders giving away penalties, and probably should have gone to the bin straight away afterwards, but ended up being another warning. And you can hear David Havili telling his boys, no more beeping penalties, which, yeah, perhaps lucky to get away with it, and that wasn't that a penalty try wasn't given at the end there, making it a draw. The Brumbies came very, very close to getting another point out of this one. We follow that up with a game that I think the Rebels versus the Blues. Look, I think there were two games this weekend where I felt the Australian teams wouldn't have much hope, and that was going to be the Tars and the Rebels, the two teams that have come lowest in here. Look, the Blues, I don't know, is Flat Track Bully a bit of a harsh term on them, but look, they are a side that we know can rack up points. They have got some really good players. Their problem has been just stringing it together. So if you put them up against a team that doesn't put them under pressure, then boy oh boy, they're going to go to town. As one post said, yes, the umpires declared close of play at 3 for 50 for the score of this one. But go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, real interesting though. For all their so-called dominance, they didn't score until basically right on half time when Tom Robinson went over for the try. But it's also arguable that they probably should have conceded. If that was a deliberate pull down of a maul, it probably should have been a penalty try as well. The only thing I can basically think of is that the player sort of ended up short, but the only reason he was short is because he was taken down from an illegal situation. I actually do believe it should have been a penalty try, and maybe it's the Rebels that should have been leading at halftime. But credit to the Blues, you're right. It was a real bully. They bullied them at scrum time. In fact, 2 or 3 of those penalties pretty much came indirectly from scrum penalties. A great penalty kick from Zane Sullivan right on the halfway mark. That was on the 32nd minute to push it out to 12-3. And I think they tried just before halftime gave them some breathing space. Unfortunately, if that had been a penalty try when Choke got yellow carded, which it should have been, it would have made it 10-12. So the Blues would have still had their necks in front, but even so, and one of the things I sort of tweeted at the time was that the Blues actually played better with 14 men than they did with 15, because as you say, in that first 40 minutes they couldn't get over the line. It was just penalty. It was scrum penalty after scrum penalty they were knocking over, and on 41 minutes in after the hooter, Big Red goes over. Yeah. You look at this. You look at this Rebel side, and on paper, they're not the worst pool. They've got, Matt Tumua and Powell, who both played international rugby, so you've got a couple of halves. But unfortunately, they just really don't get over the advantage line. And I suppose the scary step for them is the fact that Marika Kurabeti, who's one of the better wingers running around in Australian rugby, around with Lamani, who's pretty sharp as well, just really, really and truthfully, haven't been on the end of anything this year, and that's been one of the big problems for them. Aaron just makes a point about the Bryce Hem try. Yeah, listen, that's a 50-50 one that may have come off the shoulder, may have come off the arm. There was probably just enough out there for the officials. It wouldn't have worried me if it had gone the other way either. Showed some good pace actually for a veteran winger.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's one. We have raised question marks on our shows about whether he should have been given a contract at all. To be honest with you, but look, he is now. He's been with the side for a few weeks. The last couple of weeks, he has been putting in some decent performances. The Nocturnal Rights, even Corabetti looked hesitant. There's something wrong there. Yeah, look, the Rebels really, with the lowest try scorers in Super Rugby AU, And we saw that again tonight, that they just cannot score tries. When they've stayed in games, it's been through tough defence and Tamur knocking over penalties. Now, if your set piece is getting destroyed in the way that it was by the Blues, then basically it's all over for them. So officially they won 5 out of their 7 scrums. But look, if you lose any of your own scrums, something's wrong there, and you're in trouble, aren't you? Let's be honest nowadays. Add into that 79% tackling, which they weren't doing earlier in the game, losing also 5 of their lineouts, it was just asking for the Blues to dominate it in the second half. Then, as you say, the Rebels messed things up. The Blues got themselves into try scoring positions. It blew out from 317 to 350, and particularly in that last particularly in the last quarter, Ikiriwani, Sotutu both picked up 2 tries each. AJ Lamb literally walked over the line and put it down at one point, which showed you how much the Blues had pulled the Rebels out of shape there. A good night out for the Blues. They'll be very happy with that result. Restore a lot of confidence after they didn't make the Super Rugby Aotearoa final, and they'll be looking at, and I think we can see something probably fairly similar happening against the Tars. But the difference being the Tars can score tries, whereas the Rebels can't. And this is going to be a long old comp for the Rebels, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Paul. Listen, some good individual performances as well from the Blues as well. Just looking through the team list here, I thought Hoskins Sotutu, his standards were a little bit higher. It was actually good to see him show a little bit of patience from a scrum pushover. I'm having a chuckle because the Australian commentators, Aaron, has just reminded us, keep calling Sam Nock, Sam Derry. So all of a sudden he's basically shrunk and he looks completely different, and he's playing halfback these days. That is Sam Derry. But just getting back to other players that I thought, well, once again, Tom Robinson, I had this question asked of me, and you can, maybe I'll get an answer off you after I finish. I thought Tom Robinson, once again, just so much energy that he brings to the team, and he's always constantly in the referee's ear. He's got to be careful that he probably doesn't turn into another Ash Dixon, if you know what I mean. Probably in the ear all the time, and a player who, listen, I know Josh Goodhue really well, and he's had a lot of issues in and around head knocks, but man, I just thought he was really, really good. Threw a couple of nice little offloads. His clean out work was really, really good, and he took most of his own lineouts from what I believe, and also stole a couple as well. And I thought that was probably one of his better games in a Blues jersey. And of course, there's that front row collectively, but they're a really, really big pack. But my question to you, Paul, is when Patrick Tuipulotu comes back into the side, do you reinstate him as the captain, or do you keep Tom Robinson as the captain?
I think you end up going back to Patrick because he is that All Black and carries that kind of respect. But I think Tom Robinson probably will be the vocal leader of the team, because Patrick's not really that vocal kind of guy. He's more that lead by example guy. Really, isn't it? I think he's improved his talking skills, but I think he'll end up. Yeah, he'll probably officially carry the armband, but I think you'll see that that Tom Robinson will do a lot of leadership in a sort of non-captain's kind of role. Is I think how they'll probably handle it.
Interesting post there from Richard Knock. The Blues backline needs to be addressed as they look very incoherent a lot of the time forward. Pat carried us the whole game, and we should have capitalised even more. I totally agree. Something's not quite adding up. I mean, to say there's a lot of. I could see some little moves trying to be created. There was one actual move where they used a bit of a what they call a double man play or ghosting play, where players are ghosting around each other. But the credit to the Rebels, they were even able to stop it. So there's not that real accuracy in their play. I don't know what it is, Paul. I think that's something that we've seen all season. Can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, no, we've been talking about this disjointed back line the whole time, and neither Terry Black or Harry Plummer have managed to get it clicking. Even when we've got the second playmaker, when you've got Perifetta in at 15 again, none of them seem to be able to get it working. I don't know if we've got too many individuals in that back line and not enough team sort of style players. And are they running hard enough on those dummy lines when they're doing it? And are they showing the commitment to try and draw defenders? I don't know. TJ Fayani is a big difference. I agree, Aaron. At 12, he is part of that glue in there that sort of holds it together. That unselfish player who does have distribution skills, can make a break. And another leader within that back line. I think it's perhaps what they need is someone who is a leader in that back line. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a couple of suggestions here that maybe it's a conservative coaching staff for the Blues. Aaron suggesting they need a running first five. Again, Jordan Clark, Terry lacking the attacking mindset. A good kicker, a good positional player to lead his forwards around, and with a pack like that, that can work a lot of the time. But it does make it look disjointed. If you don't get that forward dominance, then you're in a lot of trouble, which I think is what we've seen in Super Rugby Aotearoa for this Blues team. Now I'm trying to think now where there's one of the games. Did we have a double yellow card in one of these games, or is my memory? My memory's really playing with me.
Just Adrian Choke was the only player to be yellow carded in this particular Rebels game. So, probably in the main, the discipline wasn't too bad. It looked like it was played in an okay spirit. I mean to say, I don't think anybody tried harder than the skipper of the Rebels team. Was that? No, it wasn't Leota who was the skipper of the team. It might have been Matt Tumua who was the skipper. But I thought Leota in the pack played really, really well. But in the main, they hardly fired any shots. Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, no, exactly. And everyone is in the live chat is reminding me where the double Western Force get Force game double yellow, Chiefs 2 yellow cards, double yellow. Yes, okay, that's where double yellow was, folks. Now look, moving on to that final game. Then look, 7 hours of sat still watching rugby with a kickoff at midnight, finishing at 2:00 in the morning. Wow, it was a bit of an ask, in all honesty, to get through all of that rugby. And as you can tell, I kind of started to lose it when it came to that last game. Yeah, my notes are not great, I'll be honest, for the Blues, for the Force versus the Chiefs. As you can see on the screen there, yeah, I kind of gave up after about 14 minutes with my notes, unfortunately. So I have to. This one will be done more from memory than from anything else on this one. But look, a really close game. Another one that came down to the final kick of the game, which again was missed by the Australian side, finishing 19-20. The Chiefs, 19 penalties in this game. Absolutely nuts. Double yellow card around half time. So look, the Force really did a very good job frustrating this Chiefs team, really keeping in touch. In it was it 7-10 at half time. I say Dave McKenzie didn't have his kicking boots on, but great possession and territory stats by the Force, putting themselves on top, making the Chiefs do a lot of work, give up a lot of penalties. Perhaps they should have given them a few more. Nocturnal Rights, did you go into a Freudian dream state, Paul? Tell us about your mother. No. No, we're not going there, boy. We're not going there. But turnovers conceded 17 each. Again, a lot of perhaps not the most continuity in this one. As I say, yes, I did watch the whole game, but I don't remember much of it. Stephen, can you help me out, please?
Oh, listen, the way that the Chiefs started, and they started early, after a non-try from a knock-on that was that the TMO reviewed and found there was a little knock-on there, and then the Chiefs basically got going, and I thought, oh, well, here we go, but boy, it just sort of like stumbled from one era to another era, and with not a lot of rugby being played in the next sort of 30 odd minutes, and then those two cards obviously came into play, and then there was the penalty try in a minute within each other. I thought it was a little bit harsh, to be honest, Paul, but he probably felt that the Chiefs had given away quite a few penalties leading up to the first original card to Leonard Brown. But credit to the Chiefs, they even with 13 players, they managed to get themselves back into the fourth half and pick up a penalty just before halftime. And I've got to admit, that's when I gave it away. I thought enough is enough. I thought basically the Chiefs would get these two players back on the field. But once again, after that Damien McKenzie penalty, we had to wait another 14 minutes in the second half before the Chiefs scored from close range, Nathan Harris. And we had one of these, I must admit, we had one of these officials who just wanted to review everything, which probably didn't help for anybody who was watching the game. Now, I watched that second half highlights today, so that's where I've pretty much picked up on that. And it wasn't until about the 57th minute where the Chiefs actually finally put something decent together. Had Sawakula ranging a little bit wide, made a nice break, showed a bit of pace, looked more like an outside back than a number 8, and drew the last man. And you thought, well, here we go. The Chiefs at 20-7, 23 minutes left to go. They've pretty much got this wrapped up, but the 66th minute rolls around, and unfortunately for Luke Jacobson, he gets his second yellow card, which happens to be a red card. And the disappointing thing for Luke Jacobson, he must have known that he, having already taken in a yellow, basically being asked not to play the ball on the ground, and told a couple of times, but he didn't listen. And of course, that was the end of that. I suppose the one upside, it wasn't foul play, but in the whole context of things, Paul, that discipline, you mentioned that number of penalties before, was it 19 penalties? Yep. just not acceptable.
Yeah, look, you're going to get multiple cards if you're going to have if you're going to do that, and if and the players really have to watch themselves. Chiefs most likely a bit of a hangover after playing the final. Not so much hangover in the same way the Reds had, which was partying. But look, it's a long old trip from Hamilton all the way over to Perth. It's the far side of Australia. It's a long way. They're also down to just two fit locks as well. Both of obviously the Eye playing a wonderful game yet again. But I was really impressed by Josh Lord. Good to see that there's a young guy, not much experience at this level. Again, single figures caps definitely, but he was more than willing to actually play his game and play with freedom, which was fantastic to see for the young guy in that situation.
Paul, I was going to say probably overshadowed Tupuvai in this game, to be fair.
I think both players had a good game. I think it's one of the things we've seen from this Chiefs team, isn't it? That we've had our pre-season concern was their locks. Let's be honest. 4 guys aged 20 or 21, a handful of caps between them, but they really have stood up. Which goes again, if players get their opportunities, quite often they can pick. They can run with them, especially if you've got other good players around you. Dave McKenzie ran things pretty well, but 40% kicking from him and 33% kicking from the Force. Both teams left points out there. On this one, it's some comments in here about the referee. Not particularly happy with him, but look, what has been good is that there was a good crowd for this one, so it's good to see the Blue Wave or the Blue Force, or I forgot what they're called now, for this one. Real disappointment from Stan Sport, though, in that a lot of people couldn't watch this game because of it kept buffering. So let's hope they get that one sorted out. Good the Chiefs will be happy to have got that 1 point win and got through this one. This was the one game that I could see tripping up the New Zealand sides because of the travel, because they played last weekend, and because they had no lock or down to the last locks. Sea of Blue, thank you. That's the name of the supporters there. And the Force came so close to doing it. So yes, it was 5-0, but two teams came very close in the Brumbies and the Force. I think the Brumbies, Force, and the Reds will continue to be competitive games. Unfortunately, the Tars and the Rebels, I can't see them being competitive games in this one. The leadership of players like Kahui, I've gone blankers to the
Thrash, Jeremy Thrash.
Thrush, Rob Kearney. In this Force side, yes, we've seen them, a group of players that hadn't played much together, with the improvement in them. Again, some real problems at scrum time, though, as Medrano got a working over in this one. That would have been by Aiden Ross.
Yes.
In this one. Again, that's got to be a concern for them. But the way that they just stuck in this game, made it into a fight, was very good. You've got to say, and that's going to cause. I think they're going to cause all the Kiwi sides some problems unless those Kiwi sides can jump out to an early lead and have that scoreboard pressure.
Paul, you mentioned the likes of Jeremy Thrush, and I thought he was, and having watched the second half today, I thought he was consistently good throughout this performance. Like, it was the main ball winner for them, carried really well, and listen, a special moment for Richard Kahui scoring against his old team. He would have enjoyed that, but boy, how sweet for those guys had they picked up that win. That would have been a very, very sweet moment for a couple of guys that are in the twilight of their career. Yeah, they'd have to, the Force, once they get on the road, they'll have to be much better than this. And next week they'll come across the Hurricanes side in very good spirits. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach that game as well. Also, I'm glad you mentioned Aiden Ross, because it's the rise and rise of this loose head prop. We saw how good he was during Super Rugby Aotearoa, and he's got off to a very good start again. In fact, we saw a couple of good performances from loose head props over the weekend. Even Kautu Nukuiafe scrummaging very, very well and showing us the form that we saw from him a couple of seasons ago. But all in all, in summary, Paul, yeah, just the case of the Chiefs. I think they'll be happy to ride out of Dodge with the 4 points, because I'll tell you what, it would have been very, very tough had they lost that first game, especially if the rest of the New Zealand teams stay on track winning, that is. Yep.
Looking forward to next weekend then, very quickly. We've got the Hurricanes versus the Rebels. Well, I think we already know what's going to happen in that one. The side that scores more tries than anybody else pretty much in the Hurricanes against the side that can't score tries. The Western Force will host the Highlanders, which that's actually Friday night games. So I think that'll be a cracker there. The Blues up against the Waratahs. Well, flat track bullies get another flat track to bully. Is my saying that one. That's at 4:35 p.m. So that's the early game on Saturday. So next weekend it makes it a bit easier to watch, folks. We don't have that midnight game from a New Zealand point of view. That's followed up by the Chiefs versus the Brumbies. That'll be a cracking game. We've already seen the Brumbies push the Crusaders all the way. And with a good set of locks there against the Chiefs, and then finally the Reds versus the Crusaders. The two champions going head to head in that final one, which will obviously be a tough one for the Reds. Crusaders still, as I say, the favourites to win this tournament, even if they didn't pick up the bonus points at the weekend.
I feel a bit for the old Brumbies. They've kind of drawn the short straw in the draw pool. They've actually got both the Crusaders first up, Chiefs first up, Blues first up, and all those first three games are all away before they head home and play their their final two games against the
Hurricanes and the Highlanders.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, tough old start for them, really.
Yeah, so as I say, I think the organisers have really stuffed up this draw in that sense, giving, as you say, giving the Brumbies, the side that we would expect to be the most competitive one from Australia, the hardest draw possible for them, is really harsh. But there we go. So it's a very tough draw for them. After that, we end up with some games on a Sunday game on round 3, and back to 2 games on Friday night, 3 games on Saturday night for rounds 4 and 5. But thankfully, no more midnight kickoffs, which is great to see from a New Zealand point of view. The Nocturnal Lights says, games will be better at home. So Reds will be better at home. Brumbies will be happy to be in Hamilton as the Chiefs travel back. Yeah, there is that side of things, and it's going to depend on. I think a lot of teams will, having had, or for the teams that made the finals, having been able to rest some of their players for a week will be good for them. So the Crusaders, Chiefs, Brumbies, and Reds, you'd expect to be closer to full strength from next week onwards as well. So looking forward to that. Aaron, makes a good point that next weekend there's a bumper action at Eden Park with the Sevens curtain raisers and a dessert. So the one of the Australian women's and men's Sevens teams coming over to play the All Black Sevens and the Black Fern Sevens either side of that game at Eden Park. So get down to Eden Park for those games. It should be a cracker with some 2 cracking competitive games sandwiched between a flat track bully game in the middle. That one. So thank you very much, Stephen, for joining me on this Super Rugby review show. Look, sorry, folks, that we didn't get the Super Rugby preview show out on Thursday. A bit of a communication issue between myself and Cornflake as to whether he was available or not. Sorry he wasn't available for that one, but don't worry. Next Thursday, we will definitely have a preview show out for all of you to watch and listen ahead of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman Round 2.